This 7th installment in the main Resident Evil franchise was released in 2017 to some mixed reception, some appreciating its diversion from the core aspects of the franchise, and some believing they went too far. This game is one of my favorite survival horror games to date, and I believe it was the necessary redirection the series needed. Resident Evil Biohazard marked a new age for Resident Evil with the newly created RE engine, gameplay updates, and modernized elements. Now, with all that being said, I think this game still perfectly encapsulates what a stellar Resident Evil game is in essence. A horror-filled survival situation that forces the player to use their wits and face their fears. The setting and environment are the most jarringly different things that this game does, but having a Texas Chainsaw Massacre-inspired family and home deep in the swamps of Louisiana is a great setup that delivers. As an avid horror fan myself, I appreciate all the different inspirations RE7 took when designing its monsters, scares, and action set pieces. I think this departure from your hordes of zombies in sprawling cities or foreign villages makes RE7 infinitely memorable and replayable in addition to its 3-act gameplay structure. Resident Evil Biohazard does something genius, where obviously a story follows a 3-act structure that develops continuously, but the gameplay does this along with it. The first act of this game is full-on horror, running and hiding from the Baker family and barely making it forward. The second act, the longest section of the game, is what most original fans will recognize, with superb survival horror elements where you are conserving resources and solving puzzles to progress towards the next boss. And the third and final act trends more towards the action-heavy gameplay of Resident Evil 4, where you are fairly locked and loaded with ammunition to blow away more and larger enemies. This makes you feel the progression of the story and the increasing capability of the quote-unquote nobody, Ethan Winters, that you control. Now, RE7 does have its flaws, where at times the game is a bit too simple and straightforward, and the protagonist makes some more than questionable decisions. But I think the innovation in tiered gameplay makes up for it, and makes this one of the best Resident Evil games. What do you think? Have you played Resident Evil Biohazard? Thank you for watching, and remember, evil is only a word. The reality is much worse. Resident Evil 2 is a remake of the 1998 game by the same name. This soft restart of the franchise after the 7th installment in the main franchise was for some gamers, including myself, the start of something new. To understand my perspective, I had never even played a Resident Evil game before Resident Evil 2's remake. Not that I had anything against the franchise, it was just one of those essential franchises that I was not into in my youth. But once I got my hands on RE2, I have been 100% hooked and have played every installment released since. So I am by no means a reviewer who understands the pre-2017 Resident Evil games, so take my opinion as you will. With that being said, Resident Evil 2 is one of my favorite games of all time, and in my opinion, is the best remake of any video game. Yeah, that's high praise, considering I think highly of Samus Returns and the current Final Fantasy VII remakes. For me, Resident Evil 2 specifically is this incredible concoction of late 90s vibes, addictive gameplay, and terror around every corner. And when I say this game is addictive, I mean there is a hook in how this game and other survival horrors are designed, where every movement, every bullet, every risk and reward decision matters. This game is addictive in the essence of replays, where you are always trying to do better, never backtracking, conserving ammo and healing items, and taking as minimal damage as possible. And the game designers know this, because even in the original, you can play the game from the perspective of the other character, not chosen in your first playthrough. Some may see this second playthrough with either Leon or Claire as repetitive and meaningless, but it certainly is not. There is just enough different in the game design and story that makes you want to complete both Claire and Leon's own sections of the game. Now let's talk about Claire Redfield and Leon Kennedy, because they are two of the most iconic video game characters to date, and this game portrays them perfectly. Leon, especially starting out as a naive Raccoon City Police Department officer, is a must-play gaming protagonist. Essentially, if you intend to play his sequel games like Resident Evil 4 or Resident Evil 9, this is a must-play. Claire is also great, but I'm waiting fingers crossed for a Code Veronica remake so we can get some more Claire, but I'm getting off topic. The final pillar that completes a Resident Evil game to me is the terror behind every corner. Now when I say that, I'm sure the titular zombies, lickers, and the like come to mind. But for me, that's just the surface level of how great these games are at creating a horrific landscape. The sound design, environmental details like blood trails and readable notes left behind by survivors or the dead, and lighting all play into what makes a Resident Evil game a Resident Evil game. What do you think? What was your Resident Evil 2 experience? Thank you for watching, and don't forget, evil is only a word. The reality is much worse. First thing is that this game is overhated, period. Does it completely recapture the magic of the Resident Evil 2 remake? No. Is it still a worthwhile entry in the Resident Evil series? Absolutely. Let's start by breaking down what this game lacks compared to its predecessor. Number one, there's only one playthrough rather than two. To me, this is the biggest letdown about Resident Evil 3, but the original game was this way. So if anything, you have to hold this against the original, not the remake. Number two, a large amount of the game is reused from Resident Evil 2. Not surprisingly, since this game takes place in the same time frame and setting as Resident Evil 2, it uses a lot of the same gaming assets, which is not to say that this game is bad, it's just not checking the box for originality. Which again, I gotta say, is more of something wrong with the original than the remake. So the Resident Evil 3 remake really begs the question of how faithful a remake should be to its original. If being faithful means following aspects of the original that were not that great. Like imagine an RE3 remake, with more originality and a complete second playthrough. I feel like this remake would have received higher praise, but at the same time, would have had a group of fans detesting that it's too different from the original. It's a double-edged sword. Again, do we improve or do we maintain the status quo? And honestly, that's a position I would not want myself to be in as a video game creator. So all in all, if you enjoyed the Resident Evil 2 remake or enjoy solid survival horror games, this game is still very much for you, despite some negativity in the community. I still enjoy this game and always include it in my replay of the modern Resident Evil games. Another funny thing that I'd like to mention about this game is that it came out in 2020, and it came out in March of 2020, which many of us know is when the COVID-19 pandemic really ramped up. So this game had this funny little sense of a little bit of reality mixed in with its gaming. But again, just a little fun fact from when I played this game. But tell me what you think. Is RE3 overhated, or are the critiques fair? Thank you for watching, and don't forget, evil is only a word. The reality is much worse. Resident Evil Village was released in 2021 as the 8th main installment in the Resident Evil franchise. Following the success of Resident Evil 7, Biohazard, and the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes, Resident Evil 8 was set properly positioned to be another great success for the franchise, and despite some minor gripes I have with the game, it totally delivers. Resident Evil Village dials the gameplay up to 11 compared to its predecessor Biohazard. The enemies are much more difficult to knock down, the puzzles and exploration are enhanced, and the scope of the game is much greater. That being said, my least favorite aspect of RE8 is the lack of cohesion between the different quote-unquote areas. What I mean is that RE8 has 4 main enemies and then a finale, which are all stellar gameplay segments. And let me repeat that, each segment is stellar in its own right, but what they lack is cohesion or a common theme. You jump from a village of werewolves to a castle of vampire witches, to an Annabelle-style possessed doll, to battling a giant fishman, to a Magneto redneck who you have to destroy with a tank. Like, what did I just say? Again, all these ideas work on their own, and it feels like the game developers brainstormed and then kept everything regardless if they made sense thematically in the same game. I definitely prefer it when the Resident Evil games pick an idea and go all the way with it, like a zombie city outbreak, a possessed foreign village, or a Texas Chainsaw-inspired family. Consistency is key in a horror game and story, and RE8 lacks that. With that said though, I thoroughly enjoy the gameplay this entry offers. Having a hub village to keep traveling through as you increasingly progress your loadout and experience is great. And like I said, the segments this game offers are all unique and well done in their own right, especially the initial Castle Dimitrescu, which for me stands as the highlight of the entire game. Tell me what you think. What was your experience with Resident Evil Village? Thank you for watching, and remember, evil is just a word. The reality is much worse. Before we begin reviewing the remake, we have to talk about the importance of the original. Released in 2005, the original Resident Evil 4 broke so much new ground and still receives its accolades till today. Resident Evil 4 Remake had the difficult task of reimagining the original while balancing between being faithful and innovative, and I think the remake completely nails this. Resident Evil 4 Remake keeps the soul of the 2005 game intact with its addictive action gameplay, quippy dialogue, and enduring characters, while adding elements completely its own. As is the case with the original, RE4 remains more action-heavy than its predecessors, but what impressed me is that the remake adds in a touch more survival and puzzle elements that keeps this remake a perfect bridge between classic survival horror Resident Evil and action-heavy killing loads of infective Resident Evil. The characters that populate RE4 have never looked better thanks to the updated graphics and cutscenes. Leon's mission of rescuing the President's daughter, Ashley, feels even more real and fleshed out in this remake, which helps in part because of Ashley's updated AI that keeps her out of your way a bit more than in the original. But truthfully, the relationship that grows between Ashley and Leon is the heart of the game, and the game design along with the great voice performances really send it home. With all this said, if you're a gamer worth your salt, and you haven't played either the original or remake of Resident Evil 4, what are you doing? The hype is real, and there's a reason this game is as beloved as it is. Thank you for watching, and remember, evil is just a word. The reality is much worse. Resident Evil Requiem is the 9th main installment in the Resident Evil franchise, and let it be known, the hype surrounding this game is 100% deserved. So let's begin. Resident Evil Requiem is the epitome of everything the Resident Evil franchise is about: survival horror and facing your fears through determination and intelligence. It pays homage to the originals while standing on its own. Let's go through all the praises I have for this game, because there's a lot. The choices. Being able to choose between first and third person for both Grace and Leon is great. The other gameplay mode options are also welcome. Requiem does a great job at allowing its audience to play the game their preferred way. The cutscenes are a step above the typical B-movie style we're used to for the franchise. This game feels like a big blockbuster horror mystery. That being said, the game is pretty cutscene heavy when compared to earlier entries, which is not a bad thing, but something I definitely noted. The characters. Firstly, having the game shared between two playable characters is genius and tons of fun. And somehow the magic of Leon being in a game, making it a masterpiece, still stands true. And I appreciate that Grace is not a blank slate character like Ethan Winters, although she is given the similarly played horror sections. The emotional beats with Leon and Grace really land through great direction and performances. The gameplay. The action combat had me constantly saying, holy crap. There is so much added on to from the Resident Evil 4 remake, which is honestly impressive. Leon's section plays like the best mix of John Wick 007 spy gameplay you've ever experienced, and it is an epic must-play. The horror gameplay likewise builds on previous entries while feeling more advanced, and the balance between the horror, survival, and action is just right. The difficulty is the balance you'd expect from the modern Resident Evil. Presentation. Sound design, gore, and set pieces are mind-blowingly good. The graphics are noticeably greater than most modern games, and in 2026, that is saying something. And the final thought that I'm going to leave you with is that you have to appreciate every modern Resident Evil entry, because without each one perfecting what it did so well, we would not have this masterpiece of a game. What are your thoughts on Resident Evil Requiem? Thank you for watching, and remember, evil is only a word. The reality is much worse.